Okay, we'll be expecting more participants, so let's give few minutes for others to join. Welcome to you, Jean, from South Africa, Vodacom. Welcome, Andrew, from Nairobi. Hello, Simon, from Tanzania. I hope you can all hear me loud and clear. Welcome, Isa, from Nigeria. So let's give 2 more minutes for more people to join, and we can kickstart. So for those who are just joining, if you can hear me, please type in the chat and tell us where you are joining us from. Hi, Tando from South Africa. Two more minutes to let more people to join. Hi, Bill from Zambia. Hello, Tajudin from Nigeria. 2 more minutes to let more people join, and we can start the webinar. So today's session will be on understanding the PDP, the impact of AFRINIC resource policies. Today on board, I have Madhvi Gokul, Senior IP Analyst at AFRINIC, James Chiwa, Head of Member Services at AFRINIC, and Brice Abba, Stakeholder Engagement Manager and PDP liaison. So we wait for 1 more minute if we can have more attendees. So far we have 25. Hello, Elindo from Cabo Verde. All right, thank you. We are all set, and we are going to kickstart. And my name is Musa Stephen Hondwe. I am Project Manager and Transformation Lead at AFRINIC, and I will be your moderator today. So in today's session of the AFRINIC webinar series, we are going to discuss the impact of AFRINIC resource policies. And before we dive in, just some few house rules. So if you have any question, please use the Q&A section at the bottom. At the bottom of Zoom, you have all the controls. So the Q&A, if you have any question, type there. Avoid typing questions in the chat. If you have any other comment or participation, you can use the chat to type. In today's panel, we are having Madhvi Gokul, Senior IP Analyst. We are having James Chiwa, Head of Member Services. And we have Brice Abba, Stakeholder Development Manager at AFRINIC. So I will give them the floor to quickly introduce themselves before we can move into the sessions. So I'll start with Brice Abba. a quick introduction to yourself, Brice.
Okay, thank you, Stephen, and good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, regarding where you are joining us from. My name is Brice Abba. As you just said, I'm currently a stakeholder development manager at AFRINIC. I was team lead in and trainer in the past when I joined AFRINIC. And yeah, this is it. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Brice Abba. I'll give the floor to Madvi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning for those who are joining from the UTC time zone. And I'm Matt Bigoko. I'm with AFRINIC for 14 years now. I've worked in the member services team, and now my position is that of policy liaison, amongst other duties regarding IP number resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much. James, over to you. Please, a quick intro to yourself.
Right, thank you, Stefan, and welcome everyone, and good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are joining us from today. So we are happy to have you here, and we're looking forward to sharing you some of the impact that some of these policies that we have do have on actual network operations. And also you can see how and why it's important to be part of the policy development process. For those who joined us last week, you will recall the process that we went through, as well as some of the challenges that are there that needs to be fixed. And you'll see also now changes that they have brought in real life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, James. So these are our three panelists for today's session, and they are going to share with us some interesting insights regarding the process and the policies at AFRINIC. So the discussions today are going to be governed by the Code of Conduct of AFRINIC, which you can find on our website. Please, Susan or someone else to share that in the chat. So we expect all questions from you to relate to the topic of the day, that's policies and policies only. So if you have any other inquiries, feel free to send to contact@afrinic.net. This session is being recorded and is live on YouTube, and you can follow the session afterwards. Without any other form, I'm going to give the floor to our first panelist, that's Brice Abba. He's going to introduce us to the policy development process. Thank you, Brice. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I'm going to give you an introduction about the AFRINIC policy development process, and after that, my colleague James will take you through the policy we are currently implemented and the issue where we are having, and the deep dive to how all those things are put together. To do that, I will use those 2 points. So the first point will be an overview of the AFRINIC PDP. The second point on the agenda will be participation to the how to participate to the policy development working group. Okay, the internet number resource policies are guidelines. So the first thing is we have to know that when we are talking about resource policy, the process are a guideline by which AFRINIC manage the resources. So IP numbers, the IPv4, IPv6, and autonomous system numbers. And those guidelines are offered by AFRINIC to ensure that we are sharing, we are distributing those IP fairness. And those policies are developed by the community, and it's through a process that we are calling policy development process that we are going to go deep into it on the coming slides. So the policies, again, are guidelines, I just said. So you have to know that the way your community community is designing the policy follow some process that we are going to explain. And again, when the policies have been developed by the community, AFRINIC is going to use this policy to assign and distribute the numbers to the community. So the process itself is the set of different steps, okay, that, as I just said, the AFRINIC community is going to adopt, and that AFRINIC is going to use to manage the resources. Okay, so we are going to have different steps that the community members are going to follow to create, to deliberate, to adopt policies that AFRINIC later on is going to use to assign the different IPs. So here, things that is very important is that those policies are open. So it's nothing like we are going to do something in the background and send it to the community to use. Every single thing that are going to be discussed, every single proposal that are going to be sent to the community are open, they are there. So you can even connect from everywhere in the world. So it's not like, because we are talking about AFRINIC, that you must be in Africa to be part of this policy, this process. It's open for everybody. You can be in the US, you can be in America, in China. If you're interested in how AFRINIC is managing IP numbers in Africa, you are welcome. So it's open. The second thing is the bottom up. So it's nothing like AFRINIC is going to create policies and apply and use this policy to assign those IPs and the IP numbers to the community, to Africa community. It's a bottom up. So the community, you are the one say that we want AFRINIC to distribute the policy, the resources that way. We want AFRINIC to use the number of resources that way, etc., etc. So it's a bottom up process. You, the community, going to develop those policies. You are going to propose, and AFRINIC later on is going to use them. Transparency, everything, as I just said, are open. So we have the proposal that are available on AFRINIC website, are public. And when you submit your policy, you have to put your name. If you are doing it with some friends, with co-authors, all those persons have to be known as well. So it's transparent. Everything is on the website. We have the working group that I'm going to discuss later on, where every emails, every message sent are there and archived. So you can also go, you can see that everything is there, nothing is hidden. All the discussion, all the proposals are available on archive, and some of the policies are present. The ones that are currently being discussed are present on AFRINIC website. So this the process itself. So it's a simplified process. The process is big, it's quite longer. And the first thing is that anybody can submit a proposal. As I just said, regardless where you are staying, you can submit a proposal. And when your proposal is put on the list, when you submit your proposal, AFRINIC team will help put this proposal on the website so that, transparency. This is the proposal is going to be available on the website so that everybody can see, okay? And when is on the website, and when is on the mailing list, the community is going to discuss. Members of the community is going to discuss this policy. So it's going to be at least 4 weeks for the policy to be eligible to be presented at one of our face-to-face meeting that we are calling PPM, public policy meeting. So when you submit your proposal, and your proposals have been discussing for at least 4 weeks, your proposal can then be eligible to be presented at one of our face-to-face meeting. So during this face-to-face meeting, we are going to try to find consensus on this policy. So we are going to ask the community if they like the proposal as it is, if they like the proposal with some modification, or if they don't like the proposal. And they have to tell the reason why they don't like the proposal. It's not because I don't like the proposal, this is it. You have to tell why you don't like the proposal. If you're okay with this proposal, it's fine. If you are okay with this proposal with some change, you also have to tell those change. And the authors are going to take, the community feedback into consideration. And at the end of the meeting, if we have consensus, the policy move to another step that we are calling the last call. And this step, we have 2 weeks minimum to try to discuss the policy and to ensure that we maintain the consensus or not. We might have some change, some problem that we didn't see during the previous week while discussing the proposal that we may see, after the consensus have been obtained during the face-to-face meeting. So here is the time for you to discuss and those points that might be forgotten during the previous week. So after the last call, we are going to maintain the consensus or send the policy back for further discussion. So if you don't have consensus after the 2 weeks of last call, if the consensus has not been maintained, the policy is going to send back to the working group for further discussion. But when the policy the consensus have been maintained on the said policy, the board of directors will ratify this policy. And when this policy is ratified, AFRINIC staff is going to implement this policy. Now let's see what is behind this implementation. So first thing on the process, you have to submit your proposal. Your proposal have to be discussed at least 4 weeks before going to a face-to-face meeting. If we have consensus, you move to the last call. If the consensus is maintained during last call, then the board of directors can now ratify the policy. And when the policy is ratified, the AFRINIC staff is going to implement this policy. Now let's see those areas, the different area implementation of the policy. Proposal that we receive might touch different areas in how AFRINIC operates. So it can be member service processes and procedure. So a policy can touch the procedure. So member service may need to change, to adapt, or to use a new process based on the policy that have been just released, just ratified. A policy can also touch the system. So sometimes you have to work on my AFRINIC, we have to change whois, we have to update my PKI. So it can also happen that when you have a proposal, those proposal is going to touch the system. And then we need to work and do some modification in the system. And also the website can also, AFRINIC website can also be another area that a given policy can touch, and the user guides, etc., in what you are doing the RPD. So implementation can sometimes we have been in the situation where the community members say we are taking so long to implement the policy, but it's because it depends of the type of policy and depends of the areas that this policy is going to touch. Okay, so this is why a policy implementation can can be easy to implement and be a little bit complicated, can take time, etc., etc. So it depends on the area. As I said, we have those 3 key areas. So we have the member service procedure, can be the system itself or the website, the user data. And another thing that when a policy have been implemented, it's going to be applied to all resource members. So I can give you an example for the soft land policy phase 2. The soft land policy, when it was implemented, and now we are currently using the soft landing policy, it applies to all members. So regardless, just the size. Today, if you come to AFRINIC to request an additional IP, you're not going to have more than /22. And you can also, based on a new policy, we can realize that some of members are not compliant. So we are you may receive a non-compliance notification. So based on the news policy, this is how you should behave. This is what you have to do in the system. This is what your staff need to update, etc., etc. So you can also receive this type of message. And at the end, we can also have a change in the way we are using the system. So we are working right now on my AFRINIC version 2. So when it's going to be released, community members will experience some change in how they used to use the AFRINIC platform, AFRINIC version 1. So it can also happen that we have some modification when the policy that is touching the system itself and the website and so on. The last point of the implementation that I would like to talk about is the time, and as I just said, the minimum is 6 months. So when a policy have been ratified, we have at least 6 months to implement this policy. But if we need more time, we are going to request more time to the board and we have to justify why we need more time. And remember that I said the policy is touching many areas, and if the system have to be modified, and knowing that it's a production system, is not like it's a fresh system that is going to come up. It's a system that is running, so we have to be careful when we are doing some modification in the system. You don't want to break the entire system, so it can take time to implement, and this is why it happened that sometimes you request more time to implement a policy. We also have the policy implementation experience report that we spoke about last week. So here we are talking about the problems that we as AFRINIC staff are facing while implementing, or while using a policy. A policy have been implemented. We are using this policy to share IPs to the members. We are using the policy to do some update in the system, but at the end of the day, we can have some problems, and those problems are reported to the community through the implementation experience report. And now it's to the community to consider those problems and to use them to amend, modify, or propose new policies for the good of the community. Now let's talk about what is the next step. When those policies have been implemented, we are putting those policies in a document that we are calling the CPM, the Consolidated Policy Manual. It's available on our website, and we have in this document all the policies that we are currently using to manage IP numbers in Africa. And the policy, the CPM is, it has to be updated when you have a policy that have been ratified and implemented. We put this policy in this document, and it's not a big document. So I encourage the newcomers here to go through this document to read and understand why AFRINIC is doing that, AFRINIC is not doing that, etc., etc. We are having some complaints about our members saying that I wanted the /20, but they say I can have only a /22. And the reason is in this document. So if you are facing this, or you face this problem in the past, you can also go and read why you can have only a /32 instead of the bigger block when that's your request is for. So this document is not a big document, it's not like it's not that big, so you can read it in one day, and it's going to give you enough information about how we AFRINIC is managing resources. This group is coordinated. So we are called, I said that anyone can submit a proposal, but you must be in the working group. And it's free, it's open. And this group is coordinated by 2 co-chairs. So we currently have Vincent Good and David Lacosta. So those are the 2 co-chairs. And remember, it's a working group, so you have to register. You will see on the next slide. And it's supported by the AFRINIC Secretariat. So we have the policy liaison team, myself and my colleague Madvi. We are there supporting the working group. And this is how we help the community move forward. The last part is how we get to this group, to this working group. So it's very important that you register to the list. Okay, you have to register to the list here. It's very important. You have to adhere to the code of conduct, because we have some rules to ensure that everybody is safe on this working group. And you can also check the current proposal here on our website and see it. So okay, this information is important. You have to be able to speak English and French. But most of our discussion or working group are in English. However, you can respond in French, and you are going to have answer from the community members. Even though they're not familiar with French, they manage to respond. So English, I mean, the language have been a barrier in this working group. So we encourage even people who don't speak English to be part of this working group and try to improve the English. But at the same time, as I just said, they can also submit and the input in French as well. And another advice that we love to give to newcomers is to go to read the archive, because when you're on the working group, you can see a lot of information, a lot of emails. When you are on the archive, you can see current discussions, and you may want to give your point of view, say something, but maybe what you want to say have been said and fixed in the past. So it's good for you to go to the archive, to read the archive based on this topic that you want to where you want to give feedback. And when you read the archive, at least now you are up to date, and you can now see if what you want to say have not been said in the past, or if it's still valuable, or if it still makes sense for you, then you go ahead. So it's a good advice to read the archive before doing your input or giving your input, etc. So this is the last slides, and I hope it was informative for you. Now I'm giving the floor back to the moderator. Stephen, over to you.
Thank you very much, Brice. Quite insightful. So yeah, some key points. It's very important to participate to the policy development process, and you can do that by subscribing to the mailing list, which has been shared in the chat. So please, we hope to have all those that are not yet on that list to subscribe. Also, it's very important when you join the policy group to go through the archive so that you are not overwhelmed by the flow of information that is happening on the mailing list, and so that you can be also well equipped to share your views. Very, very important, because all these policies that are defined by those in the policy development working group impact you and your business. So it's very important that you come and share your own views. So just a quick question for you, Brice. You mentioned that the policy development working group is co-chaired. So how are these people selected? Is it appointed by AFRINIC, or I don't know? How do you get these people?
Thank you for your question. So the coordination of the working group is, as I just said, done by two co-chairs, and those co-chairs are selected by the member of this community or the working group. So we have a process where we open a call, and based on the call, we receive some proposals. We receive the proposal, and based on that, the community is selecting who they want to coordinate the group. However, the policy liaison, the AFRINIC staff that are assisting the group are appointed by the CEO, the AFRINIC CEO, but they are running administrative, work. They are not very active in what the working group is doing. They are only helping, pushing things on the website, pushing help. Because when you receive a proposal, when you receive a DPP, draft policy proposal, we need to put a unique identifier to this policy. And these are actions that the policy liaison are helping to put in place. So it's not like we are active, we are not active, we are just assisting the community. So the working group are the one who are going to select the co-chairs by the selection process based on consensus. Because the working group is using consensus to do everything they will. So even for their co-chairs, they are going to also select by the co-chairs by consensus. And the one who has the maximum voice is going to be there for 2 years, and the second one is going to be there for 1 year. So this is how it's working.
All right, thank you very much, Brice. We don't have questions, so I will just reiterate now for all those attendees. Please, if you have questions, feel free to type in the Q&A section. And if you have any comment, please type in the chat. Now, Brice, again, just remind us again about the areas. These policies that we are talking about, what are the topics that we can cover? What are the domains that we can cover in these policies?
Okay, policies are done for. Okay. Policies are there for resources. So I remember that in the past, we were talking about internet shutdown. We had a lot of internet shutdown in Africa, and some community members wanted to create a policy to block the stop issuing IP for to countries that where we are country where we are experience internet shutdown. But unfortunately, this policy was not eligible to be accepted, because policies are related to resource numbers. So yeah, so we have to be careful when we propose a policy. We are going to be happy if one community member proposes policy to increase staff salary, but unfortunately, it's not related to resources, so it won't pass the check. So this policy must be related to IP numbers, autonomous system numbers, and the process itself, because the process is also part of the CPM. The section 3 of the CPM is covering how the working group is creating, is deliberating, is adopting policies. So you can also touch the process and the resources, but you have to be inside in those two areas.
Yeah, quite interesting. I'll pass the floor to.
I don't know if you might want to add something.
Okay, Madvi, do you have anything to add here?
Oh, okay, all right. So in regard to the choosing the policy development working group chairs, that selection actually happens during a public policy meeting. So for those who are new to the policy development process, we encourage them to subscribe to our mailing list. And then when a public policy meeting is scheduled for the policy discussions to be presented to the community, so it's discussed in the meetings, then they will know, they will receive a notification about the upcoming public policy meetings and the resources and the resource policies that will be discussed in those meetings as well. Yeah. I think we have a poll. We have a poll to run. Wayne, do you mind?
Yeah, while Wayne is running the poll, okay, yeah, the poll is here. So please feel free to respond to the poll that you have on your screen. Are you currently subscribed to the RPD mailing list? Let us know if yes or no. So, Wayne, can you please display? Okay, so we have 68% of the voters who are not yet on the mailing list. So please, the mailing list is shared. The link to subscribe to the mailing list is shared here in the chat. Please, those who are not yet subscribed, please feel free to join. As you saw during Brice's presentation, it's very important because these policies affect you and your business. So feel free to subscribe so that you can also bring your views to the table to enrich these policies governing the resources at AFRINIC. As you notice also, AFRINIC is governed through a bottom-up process. and all these decisions come from the community. So you need to join this mailing list. Next question. Do we have another question? Okay, if not, James, you have the floor. James is James is the head of member services department, and he will walk us through the impact of these policies. James, you are sharing the wrong screen. You are sharing the wrong screen, James. Okay, good. All right, thank you, James. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefan. Yes. Interesting poll that we've just seen, 68% that are not on the resource policy development mailing list. If I look at that, I think it's quite a missed opportunity, and I encourage those who are not yet there to join. In the next few slides, you see the impact that these policies have. And I think my colleague Brice also mentioned of this, that this policy practically impact your actual network operations, or probably even plans that you may have in terms of your operations. So it's important to be part of this. And the question always arises as to why are we putting in much effort and time to discuss these policies? The answer is simple. The outcome of the policies have an impact. The reason why they come in is because there's a change, or there's a challenge, or there's a gap somewhere that has to be filled. And when they come in, obviously, they have real life impact on live networks. So we'll look at some of the key impact areas where these resource policies that we have recently implemented have demonstrated to us. So I'll touch base on some of the areas like IPv4, the evolution, IPv6, some of the policies that have also affected the AS number resource management, and then we'll also look at some other policies that have touched on internet operations, such as the VSDNS, the IXPs, NACAST implementation, RPKI, cybersecurity reporting, as well as internet research and collaboration. So to start with, I'll start to talk about one of the changes that we've done in the past, I would say 7 years. Within the 7 years, with the exhaustion of IPv4, at that point, only AFRINIC and I think LACNIC and EPINIC had IPv4, and ARIN and RIPE NCC, the other areas, have already run out of the IPv4. So a proposal came in place, I think, way back in 2012, that put some conditions to reserve some resources that could be given out at a slow pace. In this particular case, the reasoning behind, or the objective for this particular policy, the policy itself is called the IPv4 soft landing. You can find it in section 5.4 of the Consolidated Policy Manual. Now, what does it say, or what is the objective of that? In order to ensure a smooth transition to IPv6, AFRINIC's pool should be managed to provide members with address space after the IPv4 is depleted. This will help in maintaining IPv4 networks while deploying IPv6 networks, a practice that characterizes the transition period. So right now we are practically in that exhaustion period, because we are in our last /8. This particular policy came into effect back in 2017, when we had reached our last /8 in the available pool. So some of the key points for this particular policy is it's a policy that had two phases. So the first one, key element to note is it kickstarted once we were about to start utilizing the last /8 of the IPv4 that we have. Now, the effect of it was we had to reduce the maximum size of IPv4 that we can issue to our member at once to a /13. That was about 500,000 IPs. Before that, before 2017, July, members could come, they could get up to a /11, /12, based on what they could justify. If they had that particular need, they would get that. Come 2017, July, that had to change. No matter how much your needs are, whether you need a /10, the maximum at that point you can get is a /13. Now, at the same time, what LIRs could get before, as a minimum, they would only get a /22. Once we started this phase, the size got reduced, so even LIRs could get now a /24. Phase 2, now we moved into phase 2 in 2020. Now, what triggered phase 2 was this particular policy stipulated that when we have consumed much of that /8 and we are remaining with a /11, we now reduce the size further to a /22. Now you can imagine moving from issuing a /13, 500,000 IPs to only issuing 1,000 IPs at once. That was such a huge change. And the same principle applies. Whether your needs are a /17 or /18 or a /14, you can only get a /22. Now imagine you are scaling up your network and you don't know what AFRINIC policies are, how AFRINIC policies have evolved. And within your planning, you estimate that you'd come to AFRINIC and get a /15, when in fact, by that time, we have transitioned into phase 2. That's a challenge, but that's where initially, when I started, I said these are missed opportunities, because if you are part of these discussions, these are elements that you'd be aware of from the start, more so that you have an opportunity to contribute where you feel like it may not be very suitable to your needs or to your approaches. It's a discussion, and middle ground is found through the consensus, but your participation makes all the sense to be part of it. What problem were we trying to solve? I think the key one was the depreciation itself, running out of IPv4. Most of our members, or even the other network operators across the region, were not ready with for IPv6 implementation. So there had to be that consideration to say, while people are navigating through the migration to IPv6, let's make it possible so that the networks can still have some IPv4 and be able to launch or grow at a slower pace. So one of the observation I would like to show you is now the real change that you can see in how the numbers were going down. You will notice that in 2017, at that point, if you compare between 2017 and 2016, you can see the magnitude of change. And that was just because, or even before that, the change was triggered by that particular policy to say no longer giving out as somebody can justify, but maximum over /13. So in 2017, you can see that change, and then the graph started to become a bit flatter. And moving on also to 2020 in January, when we kickstarted phase 2, you can now see that the graph practically took a flat approach in terms of the depreciation of IPv4. simply because we've moved from issuing out /13s, we can only issue out the /22 as a maximum. And then, of course, there is no limitation on the number of times one can come, as long as you're able to justify that you've used the resources and you've used up to 90%. But this is a real life experience that you can see that with that change, things have changed even in the space that the resources were being used up. But also on the other side is some networks now had to find it hard to grow the way they expected because they could no longer now get enough IPv4. As we speak now, we only have about 1 million IPs available in our available pool, which once exhausted will bring in about another pool of about 4 million, which is in reserve. That has been quarantined and undergoing some cleaning, but that would be the rest of it. We are not expecting any more IPv4 at the moment from anywhere. IANA no longer has IPv4 since 2012. So if you are not part of this conversation in the policy development community, it becomes a disadvantage when such kind of changes come into effect. Another point of interest we can look at is the IPv6 policy changes that we've also recently had a few years back. So with reference to our consolidated policy manual sections 6.511 as well as 6.8, this talks about the changes for the allocation and assignments that we do to both the local internet registries and the end-site customers. The first 2 points refers only to the end-site customers, but the other 2 points below applies to both. So if you can see, the objectives of these particular changes were to increase the IPv6 adoption by encouraging end-site members to announce IPv6 provider independent address space within 12 months. So when you get an IPv4, an IPv6 resource, in the past, there was no precondition to say you need to announce it within 6 months, but then people are not adopting. People are just getting the IPs and then let them lie, but that's more of a waste. You would rather get the resources and put them to use. So when you come to us, either you have the intention to put it in use within 12 months, or you can stay back, proceed with V4, and then when you're ready for V6, come and move on with your deployment. So that was the core objective. The other objective was rectifying the size of an initial assignment. If the plan initially submitted to justify the initial need assignment no longer satisfies their current needs. So in the past, it has been a standard that most operators, either it's end users or LIRs, they would get what is provisionally minimum for that category. So for end users is a /48. For LIRs, network operators, it's a /32. Now, time has passed, network operations have evolved, business models have changed. At that point, when people started building their networks on V6, they realized that the prefixes that they were having, these minimal 48s and 32s, could not meet their actual needs on the present day. Now, what do? Some, by then, they had already started rolling out V6. So do they go back and renumber, or do they just be able to come back to AFRINIC and say, AFRINIC, I need this, I've started my network, but I need this to be expanded. The other challenge is the initial policy only said that you can come back and get more IPv6 when you have reached a certain threshold. Now, when you realize that your current needs don't meet the IPv4 the IPv6 that you have at that day, but you have not yet reached that threshold, then it would be a problem for you. Now, this particular policy, when it came in, it said only one time you are allowed to come and say, I've revisited my plan and I've noticed that my needs are this big, and I would like to expand my prefix to this particular size. The analyst will look at your plan. If satisfactory, your size would be expanded in such a way that you may not need to renumber. You just continue, you just expand the prefix size. But if our pool doesn't have that particular size you are looking for, then you can be given a different size of which your current prefix you are holding, as well as the new one, would meet that particular requirement. You have a choice to assess and see whether the odd prefix still want to be used. You can, if you already started using it, you can continue using it and slowly migrate to the new one, and you can return back to AFRINIC. But if you don't feel like it's necessary, you've invested too much on it, then you can still proceed and use both prefixes. But after that, the next time you run out of that particular range or ranges, then you need to have reached that particular HD ratio threshold that is prescribed. So this particular policy now enabled that particular growth. Also on the other part is it also enabled multiple site end users, as there are some inside customers who have multiple sites of operations. Take, for example, multi-campus universities, banks, other financial institutions. Now, this can obtain a prefix length sufficient to accommodate all those based on the number of the sites that they have. And then if that particular prefix size that they can demonstrate that is perhaps not in a neighbor boundary, assume it's slash maybe 47 or 49, 47 rather, or 46, or even 45. The policy advised on AFRINIC bumping that particular need into now us giving out a slash 44, which falls on a neighbor boundary. This also facilitates certain operational challenges that those early adopters have experienced with using prefixes that don't fall on a neighbor boundary. So to accommodate for that, that's how this particular policy came into play to resolve those kind of challenges. Another element also would be a particular site where multiple sites that are not connected amongst them. So other entities may want to have one breakout area for internet, but they are in multiple sites. So to enable for that, or rather that would want to use different breakout points for internet connectivity. So a bank having different branches and opting for different ISPs and to do BGP with, they should be able to do that. But at least at the end of the day, they should also be able to aggregate as much as possible on their announcements. So these are some of the reasoning that were behind these IPv6 policy changes. Key points in there were the deployment of IPv6 within the 12 months. So if you don't do that within 12 months, AFRINIC has to take back that particular resource so that you can come back whenever you are ready. The other key point is the organization should aggregate any announcement of prefixes as practical as possible. So defragmentation of IPv6 can easily grow the routing table unnecessarily. So with IPv6, one of the key message in this particular policy was operators, once they get the bigger blocks, ensure that they are announced in an aggregate form. Only particular situations that requires de-aggregating them should be done, but not aggregating V6 anyhow. The other element was also allow for rectification of the size. Like I said, if you got a /32 at first, you can come back and increase that to a /28. Or if you have needs that goes beyond a /28 and you need a /20, perhaps a /20 7, that can now be pushed to a /24. So those were the points in that particular policy. And the last one is now focus on the neighbor boundaries, neighbor line prefixes that shall be issued. What problems were being solved? So initially was the low adoption of IPv6. One of the key elements was 12 months. That could be a push for people to start now thinking of, oh, instead of me giving back this prefix, let me put this IPv6 implementation in my plans and start rolling out. And you'll see in the next slide some of the changes that we really observed. The other part was also IPv6 network renumbering. If you have a /32, which you started using, your network has grown, it may be a painful experience to renumber to a completely new prefix within a short period of time. But then if you get this extension of the same prefix extended to assume a /28, that makes it more easy for you to just scale at large. So that was one of the key problems also that was being solved. Yeah, the other one, emphasis on the aggregate announcement, was to reduce the unnecessary growth of the routing table. I think for those who have followed the growth of the routing table for V4 can attest that the preferred approach of most operator is to announce the aggregated prefixes, whether sometimes it's necessary or sometimes it's not necessary, but that is one of the key things that at some point became a concern in V4 as well, because some the aggregations were not necessary ones. So this one is trying to also cover that, to correct that problem from the start with regards to V6 deployment, so that V6 announcements are at least focused, or rather preferred to be more aggregates rather than the aggregated prefixes. And also now on the other part is enable those end-site customers, enterprise customers with multi-site operations to be able to flexibly run their networks, because if they only have a /48 and they have two sites that can't interconnect between them to have a single gateway, they cannot break that /48 any further to be able to announce it from those two different sites. So to allow for that, this is where the prefix, the policy allows for a bigger prefix, more than a /48, likely a /44, that can be broken down into multiple 48s, and where possible, where they need to announce separately on need basis, they can do that without any blockers. So this is a real life challenge that has been solved in this particular policy. After we went live with this policy back in 2019, we've seen different changes as well. Back in 2020, we only had about 19% of our members deploying IPv6. As we speak now, that number has grown to /38. We currently have about 855 members who have announced their IPv6, and most of part of their network is on V6. So these are some of the realistic transitions that we've observed with this particular policy impact. We have also seen that at least we have about 56% of members who have received IPv6. This number could have been bigger, but some members decided not to because they are not yet ready. So they are playing it cautious to be in line with the policy itself. We have also seen a number of members coming in to renumber. At least 3 huge financial institutions have come in to say, oh, we got a 48, but it really doesn't work for us, so we need more. And they've come back and gotten up to /44. One other non-governmental institution has come in and gotten up to /40. We have 6 telcos and ISPs that have come within that period to renumber. Some even moving from 32 to /22 IPv6. So I mean /24 IPv6. So these are the kind of changes that this particular policy has enabled. One Research and Education Network also have come back to say, oh, we've rolled out V6, but we are already running out. 32 is not enough. We want more. So they've been able to justify, and they have extended their network to, I think, /28. So these are the situations that we see, and we're looking forward to more coming whenever you feel like your network growth is superseding what you have, even though you may not be approaching the HD ratio threshold that is there. You are free to come, but also be mindful that this is a one-time opportunity. So you need to make your planning very well so that you know the exact prefix you may want at this time around. On top of that, we also have our deployment operationalization team, which would help you also in defining your IPv4 planning if you need help. So that's another thing to put in mind. So one impact that you can see once we went live with this particular policy in November 2020, the impact, you can see how 2021 numbers went up in terms of announcements. So this is the number of IPv4 announcements. Actually went live in November 2029. So the increase started, and then 2021 we peaked to about 153 new members going live, when before we could do 70, maximum of 90. But in 2021 we peaked because that was the time the notifications for violations of the policy started going out. So most people went on and started working on their V6. They started deploying. Some came for support on our help desk for the deployment. So this has moved on, and then it kind of taken a normal shape in terms of those who are coming out with the help desk for assistance in terms of deploying IPv6. But this is the transition, and as you can see, we are moving in the right direction with at least 38% of our total members already announcing V6. And we are still working on this particular policy. In the next few weeks, we'll be getting on a campaign to remind those who are still within this in violation or approaching the 12 months, so that they can either reach out to our help desk, or they can also put the implementation into their own planning. It depends, but this is another campaign that we are going to do. And we expect a rise also to see a rise in the deployment over the second half of the year as well as next year. So now I'll move on now also to look at the autonomous system number policies that we have implemented back in 2019. So in the past, IPv autonomous system numbers, we only used to have the 2-byte ASNs, and then they were limited in number. And then because of that, the policy before was done in such a way that you really have to have that particular need that requires you to have a unique AS number. The object or the motive behind this particular policy was to accommodate the evolution in the industry, because certain things were changing and then the policy could not accommodate. And it was becoming a challenge because people's networks could not evolve as they had wished or as the new technologies would like them to move. But the policy change had to come in after a few people raised the issue up. So the objective was the conservative approach of the previous policy was based on RFC 1913. And then this particular RFC 1913 is no longer an issue, considering that now we have 32-byte ASN, 4-byte ASN, which is 32 bits. So with 32 bits, we have plenty of autonomous system numbers, and that particular limit of, say, oh, they are exhaustive, 65,000 would last shortly. That one kind of disappeared. So there was no really point. But also on the other part is the evolution now on the network, the needs of people using unique AS numbers over the private ones. So the other objective was, when initial ASN policies were developed, the reliability of networks was not so good as it is today. And it was making sense to make sure for an ASN holder to be physically match-formed. So that was the justification given for this particular policy. What were the key points in that particular policy? Determine also the key elements to look at is, it had to be determined that a site really requires a unique AS number still. And then there are criteria set on how one can qualify it and get an AS number. They should be able to interconnect, including peering with more than one AS, or show a unique routing policy and demonstrate a technical need. So there has to be that element of a technical need that requires that particular unique AS number. So with those kind of changes, the problem that was being solved were the restrictive previous policy, which was hindering certain progress in terms of emerging technologies, as well as the obsolete RFC that really never made sense. When we went live with that particular policy, you can see the jump between 2020 and 2021. So in that particular period, once we went live, when we went live with that particular policy, we've seen that now the number of ASNs being given each year has changed, has grown higher. It's just because that particular policy enabled those who could not get AS numbers before to be able to get them now, because it has eased the particular blockers that were there. And also for us, we do have a pool of available AS numbers, as well as IANA still have a pool of available AS numbers. So there is nothing to block us, but the key fact is there is need for a technical need so that one can get that particular AS number. But multi-homing is not a strict requirement. So that was the change. And then we have seen numbers, we have seen growth, and we have seen even interesting models that are coming up in terms of traffic engineering, where one entity can get more than one AS number just to do better traffic engineering based on their business model and stuff. So it has enabled quite a lot of possibilities. So I'll move on and also talk about now the internet operations, other services, not only the IP number resources, but other services that we AFRINIC give out, but they are policies that also impact how we operate or how we implement those particular services. Now I'll go and speak about reverse DNS. One of the key sections of this consolidated policy manual is 10.5, which speaks about validity of reverse delegation. Now, in the past, you could just go and register your reverse DNS delegation. You enter your name servers, and even though you don't have any usage registered, this one applies to enterprise, not the LIR members, those who are in the business of internet, ISPs, telcos. hosting providers. So now, once you go into the system, you can simply register your reverse DNS, and then that was all right. The system never checked whether you have registration, you have any records registered regarding how you are using the resources. But we have to keep in mind that in the Consolidated Policy Manual, one of the key principles of us as AFRINIC, as a registry, for it to be effective, there is need for registration. So members, once they get the resources and they are putting them to use on their network, they have to register them in the WHOIS system to see how we are using these particular resources. Now, without that particular registration, the registry itself is a bit made less effective. Now, this particular policy came in to say, for somebody to register a reverse DNS, it means they have put, or they intend to put those IP number resources to a particular use, a use that they have already known, because you can't delegate something if you haven't thought of a service that you run on it and it needs that reverse delegation. So it came in and said, no reverse delegation unless you have made an assignment of your usage. So if you are using a part of your network for a particular reason that needs to send emails and you need reverse delegation for that, you need to register that particular usage first, and then you go and now request for reverse delegation in the system. If you do it without that, the system will refuse, will give you an error to tell you there's no registration of usage. Please go back and register the usage first, and then you can get reverse delegation. So the key points in the policy itself, where reverse delegation is allowed unless an assignment or suballocation is registered. For S/24, reverse delegation, at least one assignment or suballocation must be registered in the AFRINIC database. So those are the key points. The problem being solved, like I said, less IP usage registration compromises the effectiveness of the registry system, because people may not know on who to contact, or what's the purpose of that particular network, or who to engage with if they want to get in touch with a particular network and you haven't done proper registration. So this particular policy made brought those changes, and we've seen that for those who need reverse DNS right now, reverse delegation from us, they have to first and foremost input their usage, and thereby making the registry system more effective. The next part of it is also on reverse delegation. That is section 10.7, removal of flame delegation. According to the policy, the definition that was given is LM delegation is a DNS misconfiguration error. If a given DNS name server is designated as an authoritative server for a domain name, but does not return authoritative data for that particular name when queried, that is a LM delegation. You are sending queries to something that doesn't exist, something that is not ready. So by that, it's a failure from the start. Now, why should it be entertained? Why should it be kept in the system? Now, the policy enables AFRINIC staff to remove this kind of LM delegation records from domain objects in the AFRINIC database. But there is a process behind that actually takes care of this to ensure that there are no false positives that are acted upon, but also you are given ample time to correct your issues before it can be taken out. So you get notifications over a period of a month, and then at each one, the check is done. If that particular issue was an intermittent issue, or it was just a temporary issue on your network, or even a false positive, then the next check will not pick up that LM delegation and you won't be notified anymore. But if it persists to be down, then we take it that something is wrong. Maybe things have changed. Maybe you've moved to new name servers or things like that. And after that period, it goes. Key points in that particular policy is name server record is removed once a given name server attribute has been determined to be lame for a given domain and reasonable attempts have been made to contact the responsible person. So I was just explaining about that. And then the other part is if all name server records are lame for a given delegation, the domain object will be removed. So the first step is we only check name server by name server. One of the most important thing we advise is when you are registering for reverse DNS, we advise that you give at least 2 name servers redundancy. So if one has a problem, the other one could pick up and respond. Now, in the instance whereby only one is affected, that is the only one that would be removed. The other one will remain. So at least delegation will still work on the working name server. However, if all the listed name servers are not responding authoritatively, then all of them will be removed, as well as that domain name registration will be removed. So if you want to, in the first instance, if you want to add a new one, you only just add a new name server to it because the domain is still there. But in the second instance, you have to enter the domain all over again and bring in your working name servers. And then at that point also, when you are creating new, a check is done, but you are not refused. You are given time to correct that because sometimes maybe you are already working on it and you want it to be the delegation to the zones to transfer area on while your zone files are being worked on. So we give some time before actually we take them out that is at fresh creation. So we give that kind of allowance. Now, problem being solved is first and foremost, records that are not necessary in DNS doesn't save anything. So it's as good as getting rid of them. But also on the other part is they are simply increasing the response time for non-existing domains. So when somebody is trying to query that particular domain, it doesn't. An NX response is always slower. And then somebody, it messes up. And then there's the unnecessary DNS traffic that it generates. And also it's just building our domain name size for no reason. So practically these are not necessary to be kept. And then there are some savings to also happen. So this kind of, this also reverse DNS policy also brought in some of those changes in such a way that at least now, if you look at the next slide, you will notice that before 2019, you can see where the numbers are. We had over 30,000, some of them historical, were idle, still people, even the owners never even knew about them. Now, when we implemented this policy and started the campaign, people started working on them. Some got fixed. Some decided to remove them because they were no longer serving any purpose. So you can see that quick drop in 2019. And then also at that period, we went on for that period trying to advise and help members to clean up or fix those name delegations. Up until, so at this time, we are just making the campaign of communicating and warning members to say, at this period, we'll do the removal. So come 2021, that's where now the actual removal, automatic removal happened. And you can see also the drop from about 12,000 to about 3,000. So in that drop also, it was a huge, it's about 6,000. So that was a huge one, but you can imagine now we are keeping over 15,000 records that were lame. And these were just giving first and foremost, utilizing unnecessary resources on our systems, but also saving wrong responses. Because if you find that there's a delegation happening, the first thought is the zone files should exist. Then when the query is redirected to that, it's delegated to those particular name servers, and the name servers are not there, or they don't save the correct answers. That traffic is just the worst. So that is the kind of impact that we can see that these particular policies are quite effective, because with these numbers removing over 15,000 records is quite a huge number. It's quite a huge number. However, you notice that there's still some records that seem to have been there for until now. The policy itself also had exceptions. There was a pool of resources that it exempted, that is the legacy resources, as well as the minority resources that AFRINIC is not authoritative. So that was the impact for that particular policy. As you can see, we managed to clean up that particular amount of LEM name servers or LEM records. So the next policy I will talk about is the one regarding internet exchange points. That is found in Section 11 of this Consolidated Policy Manual. Objective, what was the reason behind this? What motivated the policy? So internet exchange points are one of the critical elements needed for internet economies to develop. Not having IPv4 addresses to grow or start new IXPs would create unnecessary and unneeded routing complexity for internet-connected networks. So simply, at the time when exhaustion was hitting, when we are getting towards the last /8, it was looked at one of the key elements that was becoming crucial in improving the internet growth in our region were the IXPs. And then at that time, I think there was a huge growth in terms of IXPs due to certain other initiatives that were happening around the continent, or rather the region in general. So the policy was put in place to ensure that at least there is a pool of IPv4 that is kept or that is reserved for IXPs. So it led to reservation of /16 for peering, as well as /16 for IXP management. So if you build your IXP, and then there are also conditions for that particular IXP, which has to be an open peering policy, as well as free, that particular policy, you can get that particular prefix. Important thing is it also brought in the distinction between the IXP peering prefixes as well as the IXP management, just to make sure that people don't confuse or don't combine the two. People have enough resources to be able to separate what they can put on their peering fabric, as well as what they can use for their services, as well as monitoring of the network, the IXP network. So problem that was solved is if IPv4 runs out, it would be hard for new IXPs to start with a better approach. They may start with other approach mechanisms that bypass the need for public IPs, but it won't be a scalable one and it won't be an advisable one. So it had to be made possible that there is a pool of IPs that could be used. So /16 was reserved for peer, as well as another one for management. So other key element also was the avoidance. The problem was to avoid IXP denumbering. Why was that a problem? Now, if an IXP evolves and gets to a point where /24 is no longer enough, that introduces a problem. The previous policy for IXPs only allowed for AFRINIC to issue /24 at first. But then if you come back, you would get another 24, but it will not be a contiguous one. So there is no room for, it won't be easy to deploy both of them on a single peering platform. So to make it easier was to allow for this part in the new policy such that when you get a /24, the next 24 should be reserved for you, so that when you grow, you are able to get the other 23 and simply expand your network and still run it as one single peering platform. So that is one of the key problems that this particular policy managed to solve. So that was just the actual policy statement to say that the peering LAN assignments for each IXP should ensure that adjacent 24 IP block is reserved based on the minimum end user assignment policy size of /24, so that it's able to support future growth of the IXP. This also enables an IXP to increase its peering LAN resources to /23 without having to renumber to a new contiguous IP block allocation. So simply, that was one of the key things that also this particular policy has really made an impact on. We've already seen a few IXPs that have already overgrown the /24 and they've come back to get a /23 to extend to actually to get another /24 and extend it to make it a full contiguous single /23. So these have been some of the impact that we've seen with these policies. Okay, so I've highlighted some of these changes that we've seen, but we also have some noteworthy policies that we have that I'll not go deep into. First one is section 5.7, which is the IPv4 resource transfer within AFRINIC region. Why I'm not delving much into this is because there is limited traction, but I want to bring out in this platform to say, perhaps people are not aware of the existence of this. This is also in place to cater for this particular period of exception. Somebody may have something more than a /22, which AFRINIC can issue. Assume somebody has a /19, which they feel like their network has changed and they no longer are able to use that particular 19 because perhaps it's a different model that they have undertaken. They can be able to transfer that particular prefix to another operator who has a need for that particular bigger prefix. So that is acceptable. There's a policy in place to allow that. Over the past years, it hasn't really gotten much traction, but I want to bring it to the attention of we here that this particular policy is in place. There's also the NACAST policy that allows you to come and get a /24 for any NACAST service that you may have, unless as long as you can justify that you are going to run an NACAST. That particular /24 would not be measured and just the way other IPv4 prefixes are considered when we issue out in terms of usage. Earlier on in the first policy, I spoke about the 90% usage for somebody to come back and get additional. But with NACAST policy, if it is an NACAST service and you want to introduce another NACAST, that one is already considered as fully used. And if you have a different NACAST service, you can also come and get another 24 for that particular service. So we do have those particular policies that enable for those kind of scaling of networks in this dynamic of, or in this period where we are having different dynamics in terms of network approach and infrastructure. Another policy also is the abuse contact. So in our WHOIS system, we do have a mechanism where you can register an abuse contact, and you should be able to be reached directly, unlike what most people don't. So most people aren't using it Practically, it's not mandatory, but we encourage people to make use of it because it makes it easy when there are issues regarding cybersecurity or any other issues that are happening either on your network or from your network or to your network. So it helps in that particular way, and we encourage people to make use of that. The other policy I'll talk about is in Section 9 of the policy manual, which is temporary resource allocation and assignment, where AFRINIC can give prefixes for a temporary period, but it has to be justified according to particular needs that are classified in that particular policy. So it could be for research, it could be for a conference, it could be for a particular study that needs to be done, but it has to be justified and it can be given for a period of 30 days or so, if or how you can be able to justify based on your need. So that particular temporary resource allocation and assignment policy also exists. The last one I'll talk about is also one that is coming up soon, the RPKI AS0 policy, which we are implementing to cover all available resources under that particular AS0 RPKI ROA. So this is one that will come in, and it's important. If you are not aware of it yet, you can go and read the proposals that are available there. It is still there. It hasn't gone into the CPM yet because it's not yet fully implemented, but it will get there once it's done. In the meantime, we do have it under the section of the current proposals, but also you can go on the mailing list, the archives, and see the discussion around that particular policy. At this stage, I've come to the end of my presentations, and thank you all for your attention. Back to you, Stefan.
Yeah, thank you very much, James. That was throughout. And yeah, we did have a lot of information here to grasp, and it was quite enriching. We almost went through all the CPM sections with the impacts, and I hope that this was very informative for our audience. However, I would like to pick on Madhvi, if she can give us just an overview of the last policy that you talked about, the AS0 policy. Just a quick overview for those of us in the room who are not really familiar to this policy, like 1 minute or 1 minute 30 seconds. Madhvi, please.
Okay, thank you, Stefan. So the AS0 policy, it does not impact the resources that have been delegated by AFRINIC to its members, but it's rather focused on the resources that are in AFRINIC's pool, that available status. Okay, so unallocated and unassigned. So for it, under the policy underwent all the steps in the policy development process, and then was ratified by the board. So in the implementation now impacts several areas, the resource inventory itself, the RPKI systems, we're putting in another RPKI system for this implementation. And then we will have our the ways of issuing resources, for example, because just before issuance, the resource for the members will be covered by an AS0 ROA. But at the time of issuance, to comply with the policy as written, that ROA has to be revoked, and then the issuance to the member happens. Okay, so that member, as soon as it receives the IPv4 or IPv6 resource, it can start deploying it. All right. So we are currently testing that policy now. And then for those who are on our mailing list, they will know when it's implemented and we'll be announcing. So while it does not impact the resource members per se, but it covers, it's a resource policy, so it covers the unavailable resources. When there's an AS0 ROA covering those resources, no one can hijack these resources and use them, what I call it, fraudulently, I would say, so it preserves the integrity of the available resources at AFRINIC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madvi. Picking back on Brice, how is the participation in the mailing list? Low, average, and are you very comfortable with this? And what are some challenges people face to participate in the policy development working group?
Thank you, Stephen. So we have over 500 person, close to 1,000, I think, on the working group. But unfortunately, we have very few that are active. So most of the time, we have the authors and co-authors. So it's most of the usual suspects that are active. So we have close to 30 person, 30, that are, I would say, active, but less, maybe 20 that are very active. So, that's one of the challenges that we are having on the list. So, and we also have, the list is most of the time quiet. It's not only in the AFRINIC region, but it's the same behavior as well in the other region. The list is a bit quiet, but when we are close to 1 ppm, discussions are starting. So we have a lot of discussion when we are close to a face-to-face meeting, but when we don't have an upcoming face-to-face meeting, we have very, very small, we have small discussion on the list. And the main challenge that we have, the main one is the language barrier. So because most of the discussion are in English, so from French speakers are not very comfortable, while discussing, because they're not familiar with, they don't master the language, so they don't want to, intervene on the list. And but we are still saying that they are free. They can, even say something in French, but they're just not comfortable. So this is one of the challenges we're having. And we used to have another one, that is the way people that are active are reacting with the behavior of active people versus people that are not active. That people that wants to try, that wants to do things, sometimes people can be rude, and that is like a blocker for them. So they say, okay, if I say something, they will just, so I don't want to say it. So yeah, those are the challenges that we are having on the list, but we encourage the members to register and to don't be shy. They have to say things, and as we just said, they have to go to archive and be familiar before participating. So
yeah, thank you very much. And I hope by now all participants in the room here are now registered to our mailing list. We are going to query that after the session, because 1,000 is quite low, provided if we look only at the resource members, we have more than 2,000 resource members. We're expecting at least one employee from each organization from those resource members to be on that mailing list. Why not 2 or 3? To fully represent yourself and your organization, it's true that participation on the mailing list is on individual basis, but at least you can convey the realities of your organization through this mailing list. So please feel free to come, participate, and bring more members from your various networks.
One more thing, if I may, Stephen. I want to also tell that our members are extremely few. AFRINIC resource members are very few on this list. So this list is full of non-resource members. So this means that it's the people who are not using the IPs that are creating the policies for our members. So we have very, very few members on this list. I don't know if James can, I think that we have less than 20 members, 20%, 20% out of this. It's less than 20% of our members that are on the list. So it's
like 200.
very, very, yeah.
It's
It's very few. And we have, as I said, less than 1,000. We're around 800. Yeah, but yeah, it's very, very few members, and they are not active. It's like non-members are running internet. I the one running, the internet in the for our members. This is why they're a bit astonished when they come and they realize that they want big block and they are getting few. They are why are you giving you /22 when I need the /20? But it's because the community have decided so. I've decided so in the sovereignty policy phase.
I remember one special policy, the policy for ASNs, where you had to be multi-homed, and people were like, why do we need this rule? When AFRINIC is not the one deciding on the policies. If you revoke this policy and you say, hey, we can give 10 ASNs to each members, AFRINIC is going to just do that. So the policies guides the way we allocate resources. Okay, thank you. The mailing list URL is being posted in the chat again. So please, those who are not yet registered, feel free to register. I'll throw another question on you, James, about the IPv6 policy implementation. So how far are we gone on this, and what are some projects that you are taking on this IPv6 policy implementation?
Yeah, so this policy has been implemented, but rather in a phased approach. So the initial part was to start notifying the members of this issue, but we never pulled the plug and started reclaiming the resources. Right now, we are in the final stages of that particular phase, and then soon we'll be starting a campaign which will be contacting those particular affected members who at least have gone past the 12 months period, to inform them of what is coming up, and then also give them the guidance in terms of how they can navigate the change. If they want assistance, our team, the team for the deployment of the operationalization, would be able to give them that help desk support. So they should be able to get assistance if they have the will to do that. But we'll also explain the period which we are trying to work with them properly to ensure that at least there's a bit of, we accommodate them to ensure that they are able to migrate properly. But then after that, we'll not have a choice but to align with the policy stipulations, where any prefix that undergoes the 12 months and then the next period of, I think, 3 months or so of trying to get to align elapses, then the system will have to take the resources back into available state, or rather back into a quarantine zone, so to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Madvi, there is a question for you in the Q&A. How long does it take to approve when someone registers on the mailing list? Do we need approval? If yes, how long? Okay.
No, okay. Yeah, so Joel, thank you for your question. The RPD mailing list is an open mailing list, so you follow the instructions and you subscribe, and there's no approval, no vetting to be done, because it's open to the community. In case you would like to know if you're receiving emails, the webinar information was circulated on the mailing list last week. So please check. Yeah.
Yesterday we sent a reminder on the list.
Yes, yesterday there was a reminder. So you will be seeing traffic on that mailing list. Else, contact us on contact@afrinic.net, and then we can check the mailing list system to see what could be the problem. Provide us with the email address with which you registered.
Yeah, and also go through your filters on your email. Maybe it's somewhere and check.
Yes.
And Madvi said, write to us directly so that we can also verify from our end. But normally, if you are subscribed, you should be receiving messages. And you can also try by sending a test email. I'm not advising to spam people. It's just a test. Yeah. So, Madvi, do you have any other poll to run in this webinar before we move to the end?
Yeah, I think there were 2 polls, right? 3 poll questions.
Okay.
Wayne, do you mind running them? And then we close.
All right.
Yeah.
So the poll is on the screen. Yeah, Madvi, go ahead.
Yeah, so we'd like to know now that you followed the presentation if you know how to participate in the AFRINIC resource policy development. Answer is either yes or no. We'd also like to know if you're a registered contact of a resource member, okay, and if your organization has been impacted by these policies that James went through in the during this presentation. So please fill in these questions. Okay, when can we close the poll, please, and see what is the output? Can we have more participants filling the poll? We would like to know your sentiment. Okay, we're closing now. All right, let's see. I know it's been more than 1.5 hours. Thank you all for staying with us. So let's have the poll results. Okay, so out of 13 participants participating in the poll, 62% know how to participate in the resource policy development. The other 38%, please, the webinars about policy development, there have been another one that was done last week, and there was also one that was done last year. So they're all available on our website. Please listen to them. They're also available on the YouTube. So go through them so that you know how to participate. But also, please subscribe to the mailing list if you're not. And as the discussions will happen, you can consult the archives, and there would be discussions about problem statements from the community. Then you can start your participation there. And yeah, so it looks like 77% of those who participated in the poll are not a registered contact of the resource member. So you're part of the AFRINIC community, but if you're part of an organization who is using IP addresses, you don't need, your organization doesn't need to be an ISP, all right, to benefit from IP address, to be eligible for IP number resources. If you work for a bank, if you work for a university, if you work for a school, if you work for a web hosting company, if you're delivering services, if you're using IP addresses to connect to the internet, and you can be eligible to receive IP addresses under the policies that are implemented at AFRINIC, you can always become resource members. Okay. All right. And in the last poll, how has your organization been impacted by these policies? 77% of those, they say they have had a positive impact, and 23% had a negative impact. Now, negative impact can be addressed because if the policies are not catering for the needs of network operators, then if they need further enhancements, the policies can be improved by the community, by participants in our policy development working group, identifying the particular problem, brainstorming about solutions, getting the consensus of the community, okay, in the change in the policy, and then they submit it through the policy development process, so that so that we can gather the consensus, okay, and then the PDWG chairs can transfer the proposal to the AFRINIC board for ratification, and if ratified, AFRINIC staff will then implement those policies. So thank you very much. Do we have further questions? Okay, we have one question. How can I participate in the policy development group? Peter Siabonga, you can start by registering, by subscribing yourself on the AFRINIC mailing list. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madvi. So there are a lot of incentive to participate in. First of all, you learn, you build your skills, you share your points, you participate in building the internet in the region, and you become a thought leader, and you can now access other positions like becoming a board member. You become influential in the community, and there is a lot to benefit from participating in any initiatives in this community. So thank you very much for your patience, for your time. I hope that you've learned a lot from this insightful webinar. Thank you, James. Thank you, Madvi. Thank you, Brice. Now, we have other webinars coming up, so you can learn more about this webinar series on our website. Wayne or Susan are going to share the link to the webinar series page on the AFRINIC page. At the end of this session, you are going to receive a survey where we'll be asking you a few questions to know, to get your feedback about the webinar you just attended. Feel free to share your invaluable feedback so that we can consolidate and improve on what's on the upcoming webinars. That said, I would like to thank you very much for your time. Again, thank you, Wayne, for the logistics. Thank you, Suzanne, for the logistics. Thank you, James, Madvi, and Brice. It was quite insightful. We wish more of such webinars in the upcoming days. Thank you very much. Bye-bye to everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.